Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you're watching me from. Thank you. Sorry. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're watching me from. My name is Obioramba Iboweze, reaching you from Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. Today's date is Nkwo Market Day in the first month of the Igbo lunar calendar called Onwambu. In Igbo lunar calendar, we are now in the first month called Onwambu. And in the Roman Catholic calendar, today's date is 2/21/2025. I remember at Nkolo Mahadum, we always advise you to use your naturally given common sense, which we call akonuche in Igbo language. And Nkolo Mahadum is an university. That's what we want you to know. So join us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, because this is an university where you learn things, where we package the lectures that you're supposed to know as an Igbo man, as a Biafran, and as an African. And we package these lectures and present them from Igbo man, Biafran, and African perspectives, the way you should be seeing things. You cannot be seeing things from the way other cultures are interpreting them or presenting them to you. They are doing so for their own interest. The same way we at Nkolo Mahadum, everything we are teaching here, all the lectures we are trying to package and present to you is from the ego eye of an Igbo man, a Biafran, and an African. And therefore, we are asking you, we are encouraging you to please subscribe, join us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and comment, share, and like our lectures. And go back to our previous lectures, because all the lectures we have packaged and presented are meant for you, for your own benefit. And the title of today's lecture is Why the United States and Russia Did Not Invite Zelensky of Ukraine and EU leaders to the first meeting in Saudi Arabia, which was held last Tuesday. Why the United States and Russia did not invite Zelensky, EU leaders, including the president of Prime Minister of Britain, Starmer, the president of Russia, Macron, the head of government of Germany, Olaf Scholz, and others, and other EU leaders were not invited. We deem it very, very, very important to tell you the reasons that they were not invited, so that you will understand what is going on in the world. So that is our topic today. In this lecture also, we would like you to know that we are living in American empire. In today's world, we are still living in American empire. America is the one that decides most of the things that is going on in the world today. But the BRICS nations, led by Russia and China, are trying to create a multipolar world where every country will have respect. Every country will participate in decision making. But as of today, what we have is American empire, which they call unipolar order. When you hear about unipolar order or one world order or global order or globalist order, you are talking about American empire. And so during the last administration of America led by Biden, he was not interested in making any peace. He was not interested in ending the war in Ukraine. And so that meeting that was held in Saudi Arabia by Russia and USA delegation and excluding, without inviting, the Ukrainian President Zelensky and EU leaders is a very, very, very remarkable event that occurred. And that is why we deem it very, very important to explain to you why it happened, what you have to know from Igbo man, from Biafran and African perspectives, how you should see it. Now, that meeting was held, the first reason why that meeting was held without inviting European leaders or Zelensky is the recognition that Russia is also a superpower. Even though we are living in an American empire, where America makes most of the decisions, Russia is also a superpower. And President Trump wants to give Russia his rightful place in the world. That is one reason, because in the last Biden administration in the United States, he was just disregarding Russian influence in the world, forgetting that whatever America knows, Russia also knows it. Whatever influence America is also having around the world, Russia also have her own influence around the world. Another reason why the meeting between the USA and Russia did not invite other European leaders and Zelensky is that Trump promised American people that he will end the war in Ukraine and does not want either the EU leaders or Zelensky to be a stumbling block, unlike Biden, who was in bed with them. Remember, Biden always listened to Zelensky and other EU leaders. Is it Macron? Olaf Scholz from Germany, British Prime Minister, the prominent ones, and EU leaders. So he didn't invite it because he already promised the American people that he will make peace with Ukraine, with Russia in Ukraine, knowing that Russia has the yam and the knife when it comes to Ukraine. And only a few days ago, remember, Trump called Putin and they spoke for almost 90 minutes. He called Putin and Biden never discussed anything with Putin since he came to office, since the war started, let me put it that way. But Trump called Putin and they spoke because he wants to make peace. He wants to stop that war. Another reason why they called that meeting without inviting Zelensky and EU leaders is that weeks after the war started, they started negotiating. Russia and Ukraine started to negotiate in Istanbul, Turkey in 2022. And on March 29, they were making big progress. They almost agreed on everything. And they already almost about to sign the agreement, but was stopped by President Biden sending Boris Johnson to Ukraine, and on April 9th, 2022, Zelensky withdrew from that talks, which was almost concluded for a peace agreement to be signed, to be reached. So you can see that NATO under Biden didn't want any peace. They want the war to continue in Ukraine. And that is why Russia and Russia President Putin and American President Trump did not include them in the first negotiation held in Saudi Arabia. Also, you can tell that the European Union and their countries don't really have any power or resources in the world. What they are doing is just to be a leech. They attach themselves to the American people. They attach themselves to the American government to perpetrate, to gain influence around the world in the name of NATO, not Atlantic Treaty Organization. Because in that NATO, it's America that is providing most of the funds in NATO, just like America is also providing most of the funding in International Monetary Fund and World Bank. So in that NATO, the European leaders, including the one from France, Macron, the one from Prime Minister of Britain, Stammer, and Alof Scholz of Germany, and others, they only attach to America because it's America that have the resources and money to push for most of the things that they are doing in NATO. And so America have the big stake. That was why America and Russia have the audacity to call that peace meeting without involving them. And coming to Zelensky, Zelensky is there since the war started. He knows that he doesn't have any resources to fight Russia. He knows that his people are dying. He knows that he was not elected. He was just, pushed into power by those who want him to go to war with Russia. But he continued to fight that war. And as he's fighting, all this money you hear that people are giving as aid, for example, the Europeans, the European Union and European countries have given between 93 to 118.2 billion euros. They call it aid to Ukraine. And also, United States have given about 185 billion US dollars to Ukraine. You don't have money, and you are going and signing for all this aid that is coming, and none of this aid is for free, because eventually he will pay back all this money from the mineral resources, from the revenues coming into Ukraine, from their land, and other assets they have both in Ukraine and around the world. And this is a man who has now bringing foreigners, and when I mean foreigners, the NATO countries, most of them are foreigners, to fight his neighbor, Russia. And whenever anybody brings foreigners to fight his brother or his neighbor, eventually, if he loses that war, eventually, that person that brought in foreigners will eventually lose his resources and his land to the foreigners. And that is what is going to happen to Ukraine. And it happened to our brothers in the coastal region during the Nigerian Biafran War, when they supported the foreigners to use them to fight the Biafrans. Now, after the war, what is happening? How many oil wells do they control? How much of their resources do they control? So Zelensky made one of the worst mistakes anybody could make, to invite foreigners in the name of NATO to come and start fighting his brother, his kinsman, Russia. And between 800,000 to 1 million people have died in Ukraine as a result of this war. About 800,000 to 1 million are dead, humans dead, which would have been avoided. Talk less of properties worth billions of dollars, which have been destroyed about this war. And in territorial gain, Russia is now controlling about 26% of the territory of Ukraine. That is why President Trump and Vladimir Putin did not invite Zelensky to that meeting in Saudi Arabia, because they know that he's not reasonable. He wasn't using his common sense. Because if he was using his common sense, he would have made peace with Russia. Few weeks into that war, that agreement that we are trying to sign in Istanbul, Turkey, he will have signed that peace treaty and save his territory, save human lives, save properties, save all the billions and billions he has now incurred that will be paid back. And this is why we want to bring this lecture to you, so that you understand, you hear why he was not invited to that meeting in Saudi Arabia. We thought it's very, very important to let you know. And because we said we're going to be keeping everything short, the title of our today's lecture is that the United States and Russia did not invite Zelensky and EU leaders to the first meetings in Saudi Arabia last Tuesday. And we use this lecture to let you know that we are living in American empire. America is the one that is leading the world, making most of the decisions in the world. But Russia, as a country, knows everything that America knows. And also, she is exerting her own influence in her own way. And that recognition was accorded to Russia by President Trump, by having this first meeting with Russia without inviting Zelensky or the EU leaders. In addition, Trump promised American people that he will end the war and doesn't want either the EU leaders or Zelensky to be a stumbling block, unlike Biden, who was in bed with them. And Trump have already called Putin, what Biden never did since the start of the war. And don't forget, weeks into the war, there was a peace agreement nearly signed in 2022 in Istanbul. But Biden, using Boris Johnson, scuttled, made that peace agreement not to hold, and it was not signed, and there was no peace, and the war continued. And this meeting in Saudi Arabia has also shown that the EU leaders, including all the presidents in the EU countries, most of them don't have any power and resources. They are only leeches. They're only attached to America in the name of NATO. Why America is the one doing most of the funding, they are getting the glory. They don't have much resources. And so that's one of the revelations that you have to take home. That you see them jumping when it concerns African countries and weaker countries. You see them jumping from north to south and east to west. But when it comes to America, America is the one that is protecting them. America is the one funding them. Think about America stopping the importation of German cars into America. If America stops the importation of German cars into America today, German economy may collapse. So they don't have much. And coming to Zelensky, he knows that he can't win a war with Russia. He has collected billions in aid, which he will pay back with the resources of Ukraine. There's no free lunch in America. There's no free money anywhere in the capitalist system. And EU have given about 93 to 118.2 billion euros, while America has given about $185 billion and other things they have given to them. And Zelensky, Ukraine people have lost almost 800,000 to 1 million dead in this fight. Talk less of billions and billions in properties, many houses destroyed, many things destroyed in Ukraine as we speak today. It's like a deserted land. And Russia is holding about 26% of the territories of Ukraine. So the Ukraine leader, Zelensky, doesn't act as somebody that have common sense. That is part of the reason why the United States and Russia did not invite him to that meeting in Saudi Arabia. And because we want to be keeping everything short, please join us, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that anytime we present a lecture, you'll be the first to get it. And also go back to our previous lectures, because all the lectures we have packaged for you to understand the world you live in and save yourself from mental slavery. And from this, with this, we shall be bringing today's lecture to an end. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a very, very, very good time.